What's up? It's the Benchwarmers, and today we're going to be doing our second rendition of the 2021 NFL mock draft. Once again, we will be going through the first round, picks 1 through 32, and it's updated with the most recent trades. However, we will not be doing any trades within this video, and we'll keep the order. Now, with the first pick, we have Andy.
We decided to rotate the picks, so it's not the same people making the same picks for the same teams, basically. So first up, we have the Jags, and nothing's changing here. It's an incredibly obvious pick. It has to be Trevor Lawrence. No explanation needed, really.
Okay, the second pick goes to the Jets, and with the best quarterback off the board, they have the choice between Zach Wilson and Justin Fields. I think most mock drafts agree with me in picking Zach Wilson, which is what I'm going to do, because even though Justin Fields may be a better prospect in terms of overall playing ability, I think even though Zach Wilson is slower, he's a better passer. He has the better potential to make long distance throws, and he has a great arm. And for that passing ability, I had to go with him.
With the third pick, we have the 49ers, who traded up from the 12th pick to get to here. And this is quite a surprising thing because they had a huge haul just to get this pick. And I think that there's no other explanation besides they're really confident in a quarterback, and they're going to be taking Justin Fields.
All right, next up, we have the Atlanta Falcons. And if I was the Falcons in real life, I would really consider trading down this pick because I don't think there's any reason to have it. But because there's no trades in this video, I'm just going to go with the best player I think is available, and I think that's Trey Lance. Even though they do have Matt Ryan under contract still, they can pretty much just release him whenever they want with very little cap penalty. So I could definitely see them going with the quarterback if they don't decide to trade the pick.
The next pick goes to the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals did draft a quarterback last year, but I have them picking Penei Sewell, an offensive lineman. He's going to be a great support player for Joe Burrow, who obviously had a lot of problems with the offensive lineman. It's actually why he got injured. And I think he's a great quarterback. So as long as they have the pieces there to support him, I think the Bengals offense can actually be good.
At number 6, the Miami Dolphins, who traded down from 3, will be selecting Jamar Chase, the first wide receiver off the board from LSU. Jamar Chase was really good at LSU the last season he played there, and I think he had over 1,800 yards. And obviously he was with Joe Burrow, an amazing quarterback, but it shows you how he's strong, he's fast. He, I think, is clearly the number one wide receiver on most draft boards, and I think giving Tua a weapon who can operate both in the short game and the long game will work wonders if the Dolphins try to stick with Tua.
And next up, we have the Lions, and I'm also going with the receiver here, and that's Jalen Waddle. It's really close between Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith, obviously both from the same school and both excellent prospects. So it really just comes down to some really small details, I guess. So I just chose Jalen Waddle because he's a bit more versatile, also has a bit better size, and also has shown he's a great return man as well.
That was a good pick. At 8th, we have the Panthers, and I have them selecting Kyle Pitts. This may come as a surprise because it's not necessarily a positional need, but Curtis Samuel actually signed with a different team. So the Panthers are lacking a little bit of the receiver position, and it is the best value because Kyle Pitts is just so good, and the 3 best quarterbacks are off the board. So I think having a player with that kind of build like Megatron or DK and that much potential would be very promising for the Panthers. And I think even though it may not be the best positional need, it's just too good of a value to pass up on.
At the 9th pick, the Broncos, in any previous mock draft, it would have been easy, take a cornerback. But now since they signed Kyle Fuller in the offseason, it's pretty obvious that they should take Rashawn Slater, the offensive tackle. Rashawn Slater is arguably even better than Penei Sewell performance-wise, but Penei Sewell has a lot of upside, which Rashawn Slater doesn't have. But Rashawn Slater is a defined talent. He's really strong. He can work well for the Broncos offensive line. And even if Drew Lock is not the quarterback of the future, they can survive for a couple of years with him and then eventually find their diamond in the rough, but have a consistent offensive line for that new future quarterback.
All right, next we have the Dallas Cowboys, and it's pretty obvious that their offense is very good, but it's the defense that's really lacking. So I'm going to go with a corner here. Previously, it would have been a close debate between Patrick Surtain and Caleb Farley, but Caleb Farley does have back surgery coming up soon, and there's definitely already been some concerns about injuries with him in the past. So Patrick Surtain is pretty much the clear cornerback one right now.
At 11th, we have the New York Giants, Andy's favorite team. I know Andy doesn't like this player, but I do, and that's why I'm picking Gregory Rousseau, an edge rusher. He may not be the best prospect right now, but even then, last season, he had 15.5 sacks, which is exceptional, and he's raw right now. He has the strength and the build and the size to be a great player, but I think as time goes on, he'll continue to develop and become better edge rusher in terms of the skills required. I think he reminds me of Zadarius Smith. He wasn't that good during his time with the Ravens, but during the Packers, I think he really learned how to become a good edge rusher, and that's what I think will happen to Gregory Rousseau.
That's almost a Daniel Jones-esque sort of pick from the Giants, considering how crazy they're going to be thinking Gregory Rousseau can be. With the 12th pick, the Eagles will be taking the final of the top 3 wide receivers, Devontae Smith. The reigning Heisman Trophy winner, Devontae Smith had almost 2,000 yards of offense with Mac Jones as quarterback. He's extremely good, and of all the wide receivers, he has performed most recently. So if anything, he might even deserve to be a bit higher. The only thing which is a bit downer on him is he's not as big as some of the other wide receivers, and also he generally gets his passes in a very similar way. He doesn't have a huge amount of variety, and he also got way more targets than the other two, so his yardage went accordingly. And I think the Eagles, with Jalen Hurts, who has worked with Devonta Smith in the past when he was a freshman, it definitely would make sense with the Eagles taking Devonta Smith here.
That's a good pick. And next up, we have the Chargers, and I think the main need that they have right now is on the offensive line. Obviously, you just drafted Justin Herbert. You need to make sure you're protecting him, and I think the best way to do that is with Christian Darrisaw. He has proven that he can start at left tackle, which is the more important of the 2 tackle positions. So I think that he's the best prospect available for the Chargers.
14th, we have the Vikings, and they had a similar positional need. Their offensive line is actually decent. Their offensive tackles are good. Their center is good, but I think their offensive guard spot is lacking a little bit, which is why I have them picking Elijah Vera Tucker. He is very versatile. He's proven himself to be a great player in college. He's one of the best prospects as an offensive lineman, but he may be ranked a little bit lower than some of the offensive tackles, but that's okay because he's versatile. He can play offensive guard, and I think that's what the Vikings need here with this pick.
With the 15th pick, we have the New England Patriots. They made some crazy moves and spent the most money they had in the previous 20 years with Bill Belichick at the helm. But I have them drafting for the future. Even though they did re-sign Cam Newton to a 1-year, $14 million deal, I think it makes sense for them to draft Mac Jones, quarterback from Alabama here. Mac Jones is a better scheme fit than Cam Newton under Bill Belichick's system, and it's going to work well with the core who has been signed, and even some of the younger players who are on the Patriots. And I think he is poised to lead the Patriots dynasty of the future with an amazing defense returning.
All right, so next we have the Arizona Cardinals, and I think the pretty obvious positional need that they have right now is at cornerback. It's just pretty weak in general. So I think the pick here has to be J.C. Horn. Obviously, I already talked about Caleb Farley's injury concerns, and J.C. Horn also had an incredible pro day, which saw his stock rise quite a bit. So I think this would be a great pick for the Cardinals.
Yeah, that was a great pick. That was actually who I was going to go with for the 17th overall pick for the Raiders. But 17th, I have the Raiders picking Christian Barmore. I think the Raiders could potentially go with another corner like Caleb Farley, but I think Caleb Farley did have some back problems, as Andy mentioned, which is why I don't have the Raiders picking him. But instead, I have them picking a raw prospect like Christian Barmore, who's similar to Gregory Rousseau, may not be the best player as of right now, but even then, he had a pretty good season last year. But what's more important is his amazing potential. I think in the future he can really pay off and if he learns the skills to become a good edge rusher, he can become a great player. And the Raiders have a decent defensive line right now. It's not the best, but it's also not the worst, which is why I think they can go for this risk and try to get a player that will develop in the next few years.
With the next pick, the Miami Dolphins select Kwity Paye, edge. This is the top edge, and this is pretty easy that he should be the top edge. At over 260 pounds, he ran the 40-yard dash at 4.54, and he had 36 bench reps. So he's strong and he's fast. Kwity Paye was really good, and he was also kind of raw at Michigan, but he definitely is an NFL-ready player. He had some amazing plays in college, which highlighted his athleticism and shown why he is a true NFL beast, and he will be a beast. He will be amazing in the NFL. And I think that having a guy like Kwity Paye on the Dolphins just improves that defense so much more. The secondary, they got quite covered. They're doing quite well. And I think improving the defensive line will make the defense formidable and allow for an offense, even with like Tua Tagovailoa, who's somewhat mediocre and doesn't look to be too exceptional for the foreseeable future, to allow them some breathing room.
Okay, so next we have the Washington football team, and I'm actually going to take Micah Parsons. This may come as a bit of a surprise because the football team really needs to focus on the offensive side of the ball because their defense is already really good. But Micah Parsons is just too good of a prospect to pass up on. And honestly, even though their defense in general is really good, they're kind of lacking at the linebacker position specifically. So this is definitely a great pick for them.
20th, I have the Bears picking Caleb Farley. Caleb Farley definitely fell a lot in our mock draft, but as we said before, he had some back surgery. And I think I could see the Bears going with the wide receiver at this spot, but I think the value of the corner is just way too good. And I think it's also a good positional need because the Bears did release some of their good players. Like I'm forgetting his name, but he just signed with the Broncos. Kyle Fuller, that was him, and that was due to cap issues. But I think drafting a really good corner like this is a good way to get some good talent while also conserving some money.
With the next pick at 21, I have the Colts selecting Tevin Jenkins. The Colts had recently had Anthony Costanzo announce his retirement, and he was actually picked 22nd 10 years ago. So at 21st, to have his replacement, Tevin Jenkins. Tevin Jenkins is really strong. He is a prospect who is good. He has good movement with his feet. He is quite well. He played quite well at Oklahoma State. And Tevin Jenkins overall is one of the clear top offensive tackles. Many of them have even put him because of his late performances and the most recent tape which has come out in the conversation with some of the top the top O linemen, including like Christian Darrisaw. So I think that a player like him would be a steal for the Colts team, which honestly needs a bit of help for their quarterback at 21.
Next is the Tennessee Titans, and I think the pretty obvious positional need for them is receiver. They lost Corey Davis to the Jets. They also lost Johnny Smith to the Patriots as well. So they're pretty much lacking in terms of receivers besides A.J. Brown. But obviously one receiver isn't enough. So I'm going to go with the best receiver available, and that's Rashad Bateman. I think he's pretty much the consensus number 4. He has great release, and he's honestly he's made some catches which are pretty incredible. The only thing I think that makes him not in the top 3 is basically just a bit of athleticism, but his overall, the skill set is definitely there.
23rd, I have the Jets picking Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. He's a top 3 linebacker prospect, and he's very agile. He can also play safety, and he actually won an award for the best linebacker, the Butkus Award. So that really shows that he's NFL ready. I think he'll be a great addition to the Jets defense that was struggling last year.
With the 24th pick, the Steelers select Najee Harris, the first running back to go off the board. And I think this is a pretty obvious pick considering how the Steelers are solid everywhere else pretty much. They re-signed Juju Smith-Schuster to make sure that their wide receiving core is still quite solid. They're keeping Big Ben for the foreseeable future, and cutting him is going to be would be extremely expensive and just completely crazy considering Big Ben voices pointing that he wants to stay. Their defense is amazing, especially against the run. So it just makes sense to replace James Conner with a guy like Najee Harris, staple of those Alabama teams, which are amazing for the past few years. It just makes sense, perfect sense for the Steelers to have a running back which they can trust. for the future. So I think Najee Harris is the obvious pick.
Next up, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I have them taking Sam Cosmi here. He was actually originally much higher on the draft board, but he has fallen down a bit. And I think the main reason for that is because he is a bit raw, and he also hasn't shown that he can play left tackle. But I think with the Jaguars, that's not really a problem. They have Cam Robinson on the left, so he can play on the right side, which is definitely a less difficult position for him. And also the Jaguars are kind of a developmental team, so taking someone who's a bit more developmental makes sense for them as well.
At 26th, I have the Browns taking Trayvon Merrick. I think he's a great defensive player, and he's going to be a great addition to the Browns team that has a great offense that they've already proven last season, but the defense was struggling a little bit more. He's a game-ready safety, and the Browns secondary was struggling last year. He really proved himself at TCU and addresses a big positional need. And I think it's just a great pick for the Browns and a good fit.
Next at 27, the Baltimore Ravens are going to select Azeez Ojulari out of Georgia. And Azeez Ojulari is an amazing edge, and he's really good. I mean, he isn't the most bulky, but he's very agile. He can change direction very easily. And also he's also decently mobile. I think he fires off the snap. He has great reaction and doesn't get too many penalties, which is really good, especially considering he's a rookie. And also he's faced some amazing offensive line, considering he's played at Georgia, who was really good in the past few years. So he's had some really good NFL-worthy competition, which will put him as an NFL-ready edge for the league. And I think many teams are actually considering him over other players like Kwity Paye because of the level of competition that he has faced, and also the amount of stats which he has put up against in some of the big games. In the big games is sometimes where he's played the best. He's had some duds in big games, but he also had some amazing performances. His best game was, I think, against one of the top 5 offensive linemen.
Next, we have the Saints, and I'm going to go with the receiver here, Terrace Marshall Jr. Even though they already have Michael Thomas, who's one of the best receivers in the league, beyond that, there's not really much there. And I think Terrace Marshall would be an excellent fit because I don't think he's ready to be a team's number 1 option, but as a number 2 who can kind of play in a gadget role, I think he's very solid. And also he's from LSU, so it kind of just makes sense to keep him in Louisiana.
At 29th, I have the Packers picking Asante Samuel Jr. He's not the consensus corner for the 4th best overall prospect, but I think that he is personally. The Packers corner situation is really bad, especially after that game that we saw against the Bucs in that conference championship. Even though Jair Alexander is one of the best corners in the league, we saw that wasn't enough because the Bucs just kept targeting Kevin King, and he got roasted on every play. Even right before the half ended, Gronk scored the touchdown, and it really exposed the weakness in the Packers secondary. I think he's a game-ready corner, and that's exactly what the Packers need because they want to win as soon as possible before Aaron Rodgers leaves. So I think it makes a lot of sense to pick him here.
With the 30th pick, the Buffalo Bills are going to select Travis Etienne. This is an offense on the cover, and it's actually quite surprising. Many people have them picking defense here, but I think Devin Singletary has proven that he is just a mediocre player at best. And I think having a player like Travis Etienne, who was, again, like Najee Harris, a staple of those Clemson teams, is it just going to be critical for Buffalo moving forward. They're a really young team, and having a young running back who has a high yards per carry is going to be really important for them. So barring injury, I think that perfectly rounds out their offense and makes them one of the scariest offenses in the league, rivaling only the Kansas City Chiefs and maybe the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I guess, also. But I think Travis Etienne will be an amazing addition for the future for the Buffalo Bills. I think they can address their slight defensive worries in the next few rounds, so it should be okay.
Now we have the Kansas City Chiefs, and obviously, really the only reason or the main reason that they lost the Super Bowl was because of their offensive line. They did adjust that to some extent in free agency, getting Joe Thuney, but he is only an interior offensive line. They need help at the tackle position. And there's a few players you could go here, like Liam Eichenberg and Jalen Mayfield. But I think Liam Eichenberg is the most ready to play now, which is what the Chiefs need because they're obviously a very win-now team, having just made it to the Super Bowl.
And finally, at 32nd, we have the Bucks, and I have them picking Jalen Phillips. He's one of the best edge prospects right now. I think he's a game-ready edge rush player. He has had an injury history, which is a concern, and I think that's why he dropped pretty low, even though he's a great player, as he's shown in college. So I think if he can stay healthy, he'll be an excellent addition to the Super Bowl-ready roster. And compared to some of the other players, as I said before, he's ready to play right now, and he's not like a fixer-upper player that's a raw prospect.
And that wraps it up for our mock draft 2.0. Leave a comment if you liked it, and if you think we got something right for your favorite team, let us know. If you didn't, leave a comment as to who would you have selected instead. But this is the Bench Warmers signing out. See ya.